I'm Michael Maloof, author of the Kate Preacher thriller series. Begins with Relentless, moves on to Unstoppable, and the Origin trilogy concludes with Defiant. And I'm happy to be here on One Final Twist. But
I am so excited to talk to you about this. So, for people who haven't read the book, give us a little bit of what this series is about because I'm going to try and stay under time. But there are three books, and they're not, let me say this too. So, I've had people ask me because they're kind of chunky,
yeah.
but there is not a single one of these that I did not absolutely lose time in.
Mm,
And that is one of my most favorite things to do that I have gotten lost so far into a book that I don't realize that 3 hours have passed on me. I
yeah.
love it.
It is
Um,
why I warn people don't start before you go to bed.
so give us kind of the rundown over the series.
The key to the series is Kate. I knew when I wanted to start this thriller author journey that, as a fan of thrillers, that I wanted to change the model a bit from the lone operator, tier one, special forces sort of man, to a unique woman. And I had the opportunity to hang out with a number of special forces guys and ask them about their wives. I was curious, particularly, did you teach them to shoot? And lo and behold, one guy said, "Oh, I literally had my wife, with some training weapons, shoot me when I came in the house. I mean, just I'm an intruder." And so Kate was born out of that vision of what would it be like to be the spouse of a special forces operator. And what she brings to the table was influenced by so many of the brilliant, strong, and women in my life, including my wife, who she likes to point out that she's 5'6", auburn hair and hazel eyes. Remarkably, so is Kate. But that influence of a strong, intelligent, beautiful woman, I it was the genesis for the story for the series that I wanted to explore her life and her interactions. And she has fascinating backstory. But at some point, I'll put together a little bit of a prequel for folks, Preacher in Church.
Oh,
So
good, good. That
I
was
got
my next question. Yeah.
a lot of requests for that, and I started to write it between Relentless and Unstoppable because I thought it was going to be a short story. As it started looking like a novella, I'm like, okay, I got to get back to work on book two here because people were waiting for two, and I knew where I wanted to go with three, and so we just kind of kept going.
So this is a very personal question to me.
Yeah.
There is a the game of chess thread kind of through the
Yes.
books. And so I raised my girls saying that life is like a chess game. What
Mm,
I'm going to make, what move I make is going to reflect what somebody's going to come back at me with. So
yeah.
it's kind of a twofold question. Is that kind of how you guys do? And that, I mean, was that on purpose? And do you play chess?
I don't play chess, but I love the chess theme for exactly the same reason that you use it to educate your kids. Um, Yeah, I do see life very much that way, and I love playing off Kate's intelligence and her backstory and her background that she does think moves ahead. She does try to see the whole board, and in the course of the series, the board is ever changing, and she doesn't, for a while really know who she's playing. And players change, and so a lot of that worked into the layers of complexity of the stories just so beautifully. I learned what I needed to learn to make it authentic, but loved the concept of it.
There are some big AI and kind of future forward things
Mm.
in this, but I don't know. I think it's future forward. Now let's just remember that I am from Kentucky and I still use a paper calendar. So,
Yeah,
so for me, this was very future forward.
yeah,
And one of my favorite scenes, I think it's in the last book, is when the hand is scanned.
yes,
And I could literally see that whole part going down. That just stands out to me
yeah.
so big. So, do you like things that are kind of moving towards the future?
I do, and it's a little bit of a twofold response because both my wife and I are a little spooked by how close it is to what's actually happening or has happened.
Hmm.
That was not the intention. But we came from the world of technology, and I went to black hat conferences and it dealt with a lot of hackers in our previous business life. And so that element of it, it was a natural fit for me and natural fit for resources that I had access to. In fact, we were traveling once, and a woman asked me what we did, and explained. And I said, "Nah, if I explain it to you, I'll just scare you." So she dared me to scare her. And 10 minutes later, she said, "I've got to call my husband and tell him to unplug the computer." I'm like, "Well, it's not quite that bad, but it is very much a cat and mouse game between hackers and defenders." So that aspect of it and where I saw technology going, very real. I mean, the step from what I described to what exists and what's happening is a lot shorter than people think.
Yeah, I mean it's like scarily close what
Yeah.
how fast it's going. Just I think about, when we first got a computer or when I was getting ready to graduate high school, I had a word
Yeah.
processor,
Mm.
you know. And then the next
Yeah.
thing you know, you had dial up and you had to wait 5, 10 minutes and hope you could get signed on when nobody else was.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
your phone hears you.
Yes. Yeah. And I think about all the time when people, oh, I love Alexa or this and that. I'm like, you do realize they're listening to you the entire time. How is it that you think it knows when you say Alexa?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. It's a
never.
lot.
Yeah.
Um, the so I wanted to ask this question so long.
Yeah.
So, Kate Preacher and Jake Church, and you have Preacher and Church. So
Yes.
tell me, was
Yeah.
that? I know you did that on purpose, but was it almost like I don't want to say cynical, but like,
Yeah.
haha, like one of those little moments.
It is, and it's a little bit of all of that. When I started researching her name, and I liked the play on Kate Preacher versus Jack Reacher, and some people don't like that, but I've had fun with it. And then his name, and when Jake Church popped up, instantly it was, well, every church needs a preacher, every preacher needs a church, and that clicked. Like, oh yeah, we're done. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that one. Um, and I was dealing with oh gosh, what was his name? Um, an author at Thriller Fest who was like, "Oh, that's the title of your book, Preacher in Church." And like, well, no, that's not the title of my book. But he was critiquing some of what I was doing. That is the title of the prequel.
Oh, good, good, good. Are you having fun writing the prequel now that you're seeing how the reviews are coming in for
Oh
these?
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's true of every author. We know things about our characters that you can't put on the page, or you just kind of hint at here and there. But what's left is a lot of questions for people that want to know more. And so I would get these emails. I want to know more about Syria. I want to know more about like okay. Yeah, I can do that. I want to know more about I want to tell them, how they rescued Boo, the black lab. I mean, as a dog person, I want to tell that story. Uh, I'll get there.
And so, who was your favorite side character to write?
Oh gosh. I would have to say Julian Nomad. And he still is, because I'm kicking around a series for Julian. Yes. So and it would be Julian and Keisha. It's fun. I've got some material together. My editor really wants me to consider going a traditional route, and that's very flattering. I stayed away from it to get through book three because I knew what I wanted to do in these first three books. And I know what I want to do. I've got so many Cape Preacher stories lined up, but they're standalones, now that I've kind of developed the world. But when he sort of challenged me to think about what else I would do, that wasn't necessarily locked into the Cape Preacher world. I said, well, there's Julian. I think he's a fascinating character. I think he's, you know, Lincoln Lawyer meets, Mr. Robot. I mean, it's with a kind of gray moral code that opens up lots of doors. So.
So when you started this journey, and you can totally tell me if I'm wrong, But I mean, did you imagine that you would be to this point?
Oh no, 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 no. In fact, I'm a more plotter than pantser, and so it comes from the software engineering background. So I modeled Relentless, pretty in a pretty detailed fashion. And I was still surprised, and that's the fun part of it. I was surprised by Keisha. I was surprised by by Nomad. I was just I loved creating characters in a given writing session. Like I want somebody to challenge Nomad and be hold up the mirror and make him think a little bit about the consequences of what he's doing and who he really is. And she's the good and the bad. And Keisha was born. So. And in terms of, you're an indie author, you write your first book. My wife tells the best story because our deal was, A, don't kill any dogs, and B, she gets to read everything first. And so she had no idea what Relentless was until I handed her the draft. And she's thinking, oh my God, what if I don't like it? You know, what do I say to my husband? Hey, good first effort. Stick with it. But she loved it. She laughed, she cried. I hit, all the emotional elements that we wanted, and that gave me the courage to move forward. That was the key. Relentless has won a number of awards. Picked up another one this week. It's shockingly successful, and that gave me the inspiration and the courage to get through Unstoppable and onto Defiant. My editor actually wanted me to try to split Unstoppable or cut a whole lot of it. And I said, I don't want to do that to my readers. I don't want them to have to read two books to get to where I want them to go. And I didn't want to cut it because I knew what I wanted to accomplish in Unstoppable and did. And then I couldn't wait to write Defiant because I knew where the story was going from the start. So it was that one flew off the pages. So.
How many days from the beginning of Relentless to the end of Defiant is the whole entire story?
That is a great question. I should map that. I think it is roughly 2 years, a year and a half to 2 years. Um, that would be about right because it starts in April. Um, she spends Christmas with Bella, and then they wrap up I guess really it's more like, and she has to heal from Unstoppable. I really got to go model that now. I think it was about a year and a half, I think.
I was going to go under 2 years. I just
Yeah,
changed
I think
it
I
out.
think I started at two. I think no, it's got to be less than that. But it is pretty continuous.
It
Uh,
is, and it's not like some trilogies and some series you can there's like a thread that like there's I mean there is kind of an adventure that wraps up in every one, but you
yes.
do not miss anything. Like
Yeah.
you've got to be in, and you are so good at rewarding your author or your readers for paying attention. And
Yeah.
we
Thank
love
you.
that. We
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
We love
Yeah.
like Easter eggs and little things that come through.
There are so many Easter eggs in this, and so people who've told me, oh, I read Relentless 2 times or 3 times, or the minute I pre-ordered Defiant and started rereading, Relentless and Unstoppable again, I'm like, great, that's the best way to do it, so you can get that binge read down. But I do love hearing from folks that I'm reading it my second time or third time, and I'm seeing this, and I'll get some questions, and like, what about that? And I'll point out, and they'll go, oh, that's right.
Yeah, yeah, because you definitely know it. Even if we read it that many times, you're going to know
Yeah.
it better than us.
Yeah, I do. I do. And the thing that resonates with me as the writer reader, is I'll hear from someone, and then I'll be driving around and I'll be thinking about the character they mentioned or a scene they mentioned, and I'll get chills. And I'll go, yeah, that was good. I enjoyed writing that one. And that's kind of my litmus test. If I enjoy writing it, if it makes me feel something. Sometimes it's the chills. I mean, it's literal up my arm, wow, that was great. Or I'll get choked up. I mean, there are scenes that I can recall and that'll choke me up right now. There's without spoiling it for people who haven't read the books, um, the the dignified transfer scene in Relentless, Kate sees a young pregnant woman with a toddler waiting for her husband's remains to come off.
I'm getting chills.
And yeah, the scene, you know, is timely and emotional, but a woman wrote me telling me that was me. That I stood there with my baby and my toddler waiting for my husband to come off the plane. I'm like, I mean, it chokes me up talking about it
Yeah.
that, it was real and it touched her and she loved the book.
So now that you're through these three and you
Yes.
have requests from readers,
Yes.
do you feel a different kind of pressure, like writing, like, oh, my readers are really into this now? Like maybe you were writing for you in the beginning because your wife
Mm.
says, go do it. And now are you writing because we're like, please?
I mean, people were reading Defiant and telling me to write faster. Uh, so a speed element that's undeniable. So, Relentless being my very first book, and I was part of a writing program with John Truby, who's a Hollywood story consultant, and really quite a gifted instructor. That was a 2 year process. And so I started Unstoppable with him, but realized, then the first few kind of premise reviews and a few things like this is not going to work. I got people waiting for this book. And so I thanked him for his time and plowed forward with his method, to get, Unstoppable out. So 2 years for Relentless, about 9 months to a year for Unstoppable, and about 8 months for, Defiant. So I'm whittling down my speed, getting better at the process, and a lot of that is just pure confidence. As I gain confidence as a writer, even my editor, it was like, no, this is your best book, by far. You've come a long way, and he liked the fact that I was coachable, that he could point things out, and I would go, yeah. And I tried to tell him and Stephen James, author Stephen James did the developmental edit, for Relentless, and that was his first comment was, I'm only going to do this, if you can take criticism. And I'm like, I've taken criticism my whole life. I can take it. And he made helped make Relentless a better book. So it's one of those things that you want to be coachable to get better. And I'm just beginning. This is so early in my career. I feel like, my goal is to make every book better.
Yeah. So just from the first time that we talked after I read Relentless to now, you're really in your element right now. Like
Oh, thank
I
you.
think I really I mean I hope that you're happier and feeling like it's, you've hit your stride, you know?
Yes. Yeah, I do think so. And so many authors talk about, it was their book 4 or 5. They really felt like, it was coming together. And that's where I feel like, yes, I'm getting there. That they're very good books. I used to tell my wife, oh, Relentless is great. I said, yeah, it's pretty good. You know, and somewhere after the third or fourth award, she's like, "Are you ready to say it's better than pretty good yet?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's pretty good. It's a good book."
So funny. So what's the most surprising thing from the start of Relentless to now that you've come across? Maybe it was like in your research or a reader reaching
Oh,
out or or an
yeah.
award.
Oh gosh. I think probably the most surprising is the reader response. I mean, you go into this not knowing if anyone is going to like your work. And now I know many thousands of people like my work, and they're are a hardcore number that love my work, and that's priceless. That's priceless. I mean, at the end of the day, we keep score by how many people buy and read and review your book, and it's rewarding.
So this series, one thing that I noticed from
Mm.
seeing the reviews come in is you're able to keep men and women readers. And a lot of times when you
Yeah,
get into this genre, you're only going
yeah,
to get one or the other. You're not
yes,
going to get, and I feel like you're
yeah.
keeping a really good balance of
Yeah.
hardcore men and women readers. Are you seeing that too?
I am. Early stats. would probably have put my readership at like 70% women. And although I think that's probably almost an industry reality,
Yeah.
there are more women who are still reading books. Um, but I am happy to keep them in. I
Yeah.
mean, it's still very much, there's a lot of action in there. There's a lot of guy stuff in there. I know some guys who've skipped over a few things. I'm like, oh, don't do that. Just read it and enjoy it. And I mean, the I'm heading off next week to a trip to Virginia Beach where I'll see at least two, if not three, of the Navy SEALs who are in the book. I mean, Forrest is a real Navy SEAL. And since he retired between Relentless and Defiant, I asked him, I said, well, what do you want me to do? Because I think Relentless, I give him first name, but I never gave him a last name. He said, no, it's Forrest Hickman. That's my name. I said, all right, Forrest, if you want. And I think he likes being famous in a book.
That's really cool. I did not know that they were real people, that they were based on real people.
There are many, not all, but and I'm told between Forrest and Mike, who is only Big Mike at this point because he's still active duty, they have a running bet on who gets killed off first, and I'm like, well, just don't piss me off.
Have you killed off a character that was hard to kill off?
No, everybody who has died, I was comfortable killing, but I know sooner or later that's going to happen where the story will call for someone, for a sacrifice that, will be difficult to write.
Um,
It was difficult to write Jake, you know.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I cried that first
Yeah.
book. I
Yeah.
mean, you pulled all the emotions, and that I think we've talked about it, or maybe it was on a something else I saw that reading on the treadmill at the gym. That was me.
Oh,
Um,
yes. Yes.
because I
Yeah.
couldn't stop. I was like, that
Yeah.
I've got to get my steps in. So here we go. We're
Here
taking it
we
with us.
go.
I had a
Yeah.
whole moment
Yeah.
in.
Again, I mean, I'm sorry. That is just such high praise. Another woman that I know wrote me to say, I couldn't stop reading. I'm reading in the car. I never read in my car, but I'm crying in my car.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a lot. Like that's you pull and you just pull your readers in from the first book. And I've talked to
Yeah.
several people who are reading it either through the Partners in Crime or have picked it up other places. And I
Yeah.
get messages about it all the time.
Ah,
Like,
oh, that's cool.
you're I they and sometimes they brag to me. I didn't start until they all three got out. I didn't have to wait like you did.
Mm, yeah. Um, so they're spoiled, in other words.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely spoiled. So if you could take away all of the action scenes, just take it away,
Hmm.
what would be the core story or the core thing you want your readers to take away?
Oh, that's a great question, because it does sit kind of at the heart of why I wrote the story this way. Um, I wanted to paint a picture of Kate that is every strong woman, that there is a core capability, intelligence and stamina and heart that is there in every strong woman I've known, and can be, what every woman can be. I mean, I'm inspired by women like that. I've had the privilege to work with many of them, and that kind of spawned that statement recently that, being underestimated is a weapon. Um, I observed that among my wife and other women who, would walk into a room and be underestimated because they're a woman in a man's world, and that was a fatal mistake. You know, they were probably the smartest person in the room, and you were about to find out.
Yeah. Um, okay. So you say that you are a plotter more than a painter. So did you have all three of them? Like, did you know the long story?
In Not in the detail that you might think. I had what I would call sort of cornerstone scenes that I knew I wanted to write, in Unstoppable, particularly in Africa, and particularly with Nuru. the shaman, and I knew where Defiant was physically going to occur. You know, we could set that up fairly early on in the series that the vortex point here is Davos. That's where it's all going to come together. So I had scenes in mind there, but I didn't really flesh out the sort of the sequence to get them there until I sit down with the outline for the particular book. So Relentless was, you know, pretty mapped out fairly discreetly. And even that, I mean, I would go up after writing, and my office is downstairs. I go upstairs and go, oh, that was a surprise. And I would tell Michelle that, you know, without, you know, I said no spoilers. But it was a good day because, you know, some things happened that I didn't know were going to happen. You know, so I always kind of push back on people that think plotting is this, you know, oh, you're turning off all the creativity. Not at all. I just, you know, it's like getting in a car and knowing where I'm going to end up. But there are scenic routes, and there are dead ends, and there are places where you turn around and go back, and go, not this way. But it keeps me from having to cut, you know, tens of thousands of words because I went so far afield from where I was trying to go.
Um, what would Kate's theme song be? Do you have her a theme song?
Oh, you know, as one of the reasons why I chose Dorothy as the performance artist at, you know, Davos, you know, for their Burning Man meets, you know, the ice, um, was because some of her songs resonate with me as I'm driving around. I would hear Dorothy's song come on. Gosh, I'm trying to think what the titles of Tombstone is one of them, but there was another one. Oh gosh, it'll come to me. Um, and then there's I don't know if it was a re-release or something. There's a Stevie Nicks song that I would play frequently. That's Lighthouse,
Mm.
and she basically is saying, you know, I want to be the lighthouse. I want to show them this has happened before. I want to train them. I want to show them that they have to fight for what they want. And so that was that's giving me chills as I talk about it now. So that's one of those. I think probably of that series, Lighthouse is probably the better theme song.
So it's so funny because, like, you know, when I write my reviews, and then this is just me, I take my music that I will put with the review very seriously. Like, it is
Mm,
whatever I am feeling in that moment.
yeah,
When
yeah,
I finished, when I reviewed Relentless, I
yeah,
messaged Wendy. I said, I already know the song for Unstoppable.
yeah, yeah,
I already
yeah,
know what I'm gonna
yeah.
do.
Yeah. No, and it was funny because when you did review it, and I'm listening to the music, I'm going, "Oh, yeah, that works."
Yeah, because it's just so fun
Yeah, yeah,
to put a song with your characters. I
yeah,
I do it every time.
yeah. I've done just like two kind of story shares now on Instagram where I've swapped out the music, and for both of them, I swapped it out with the Dorothy songs. You know, where you know she's basically saying things like, you know, you're going to take your last breath. I'm going to put you 6 feet under. I mean, this is Kate getting business done.
And she I mean she has a moral compass. You know,
Mm,
Jake has a moral compass or however you want to say.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but she's okay with bending
yeah,
ish. You
yeah,
know, like
yeah,
she has a great sixth sense.
yes, yeah,
Was it hard to keep a balance, like, because you're so in, like, you're so, when writing you've got to be so into Kay at this point, like
yeah,
you are in that person and you
yes,
really know that she wants answers, she wants revenge, she wants to clean this mess up, but she's
yeah.
still got, was it hard to run that line?
Yes, because there there are times when you just want to say, "Oh, just kill that person, will you?" You know,
Yeah.
let's just get this over with, or we just die already. And it is one of those things that I will say that I felt like I learned, you know, from John Truby's program, and and that is that you need to give us the steps to take that action. You can't just take that action and like seriously, she just drew her gun and blew that guy away. I don't believe it. It wouldn't happen. I mean, so I always wanted there to be this cascade of events, this building of pressure that something becomes inevitable. because she's not an assassin. She's not a stone cold killer. I mean, and she's not special forces, and and she can't compartmentalize things the way maybe they could. I wanted her to be three dimensions, to second guess actions, and to live with consequences, just to be real. I didn't want her, and my kind of driving force early on is I never wanted her to come off like some kind of superhero. I wanted to paint the picture that yes, she knows how to use a sniper rifle. You know why? Because her husband's a Navy SEAL sniper, and they live in this world, and she was fascinated, and she helped him deal with the loss of his leg and basically find his footing, while she was still finding hers, and so that those backstory elements, play into she's, she was not a CIA operative. She was an analyst. She speaks multiple languages. She plays chess. She's got the mind, but she also was in a world in which, recovering physically herself and helping her husband, recover, from the loss of his leg, picked up a lot of skills.
Across all three books, you do get a lot of backstory, and one of my favorite parts is that when she is at a crossroads, she is thinking about something, she can reach back and get a little Jakeism. I don't know how
Yes,
to say it. She
yes,
gets a
yes,
little bit of something from something that they talked about, something
yeah.
that he taught her. Was it hard to not cross those up across all three books and to keep feeding the characters' backstories?
Um, I knew early on, especially, with the way Relentless opens, that I wanted Jake to remain an active part of the story, at least through this trilogy. And I would like to keep it going, if it at some point it doesn't seem, to be redundant. Their relationship is so central to this story, that there was no way you're going to just turn that off. They were together for a relatively small amount of time, roughly 5 years, and some pre years, that predate that. Um, and if you could use the term, soulmate, they were so perfect for each other that that doesn't just get turned off. I knew it wouldn't. It wouldn't for me, and so I didn't want it to in the stories. And so yes, in those half-conscious moments, from dreams to drowning, I wanted Jake to be there.
So the way that the stories are titled, Relentless, Unstoppable, Defiant, are very central to, I don't know if you say the theme, but maybe
Yeah.
like Kate attitude
Yes.
or
Yeah.
so which came first, the book or the title? Like how
The
did you
book. I had total panic over the title of the first book. And for a short while it was titled Still Breathing. And I ran that by a few folks, and it was that cover, but with the title Still Breathing, from a Sia song that was resonating in my head at the time driving around. I'm like, oh yeah, that works. Because I was struggling with, here I am writing this book and I don't know what the title is. So I was a bit stressed over that, and I knew I needed to get working on the cover because, when you're an indie author, you got to do all this stuff. And as a momentary aside, I lucked out and got Jack Carr's cover designer. So he works independently, and when I realized he did Jack Carr's covers, I actually hired two cover designers. This comes back from my software development world, where sometimes I would put two teams on things to see who could actually get it done. I put two guys doing the cover for Relentless, and which was called Still Breathing at that time, and the Jack Carr's guy, who's Patrick King, cover just blew me away. I'm like, that's my guy, and so I cut the other guy loose, and he's done all the covers now. Um, but the response to Still Breathing was, it sounds more like a memoir, than a thriller. And while it was a good placeholder, let me kind of go back to working on the book. It wasn't right, and I just literally prayed it's going to come from the book, and it did. So when Jake says his line, Kate's relentless, she will kill you. I'm like, that's it. That's 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 the one. And so as a single word title, it kind of set the pattern. I'm like, okay, well, let's work on, the next two being single word, and keep our fingers crossed again that it jumps out at me from the book.
As a reader, when I find why a book is named, how it got
Mhm.
its title when I'm reading, and I'm like, that's one of my favorite things to
Yeah.
see in a book
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that moment when I see the word.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it connects. Yeah. I agree.
Was there a scene in any three of the books that was just mentally taxing, emotionally taxing? Which one do you think would be the hardest or was the hardest to write?
Emotionally, it would be in Relentless. Relentless has the most scenes that were just, gut wrenching to write. And Dover Air Force Base was certainly one of them. And part of that was, the research that I did on that was gut wrenching. So the emotion is there. There were certainly scenes in Unstoppable and in Defiant uh, that hit me, that choked me up, but nothing quite like Relentless.
What did you learn about yourself while writing?
Um, this comes back to the confidence that I can do it.
Yeah.
I wrote a nonfiction book, and that helped me get a sense of, yes, I can get from A to Z. I can write a book, I can publish a book, but fiction is a different beast. Can I write a good story? Um, and at the end of the day, and I was gonna say my wife teases me that I think it's a good book. I wrote a book I'm proud of, and being able to type the end. We didn't do it for Unstoppable or Defiant, but the first time I typed the end, we went out to dinner. I had a nice bottle of wine, been sitting on forever, and we took a picture of my iPad, with the end, just because when you write your first draft, you actually get to type those two magic words. A lot of people never get there. And, I was afraid I might never get there. Just a lot of authors never reach that point. And so I knew that was just the end of the beginning. We still had to edit the book, we still had to make it work. But getting from an opening to a conclusion and the epilogue, I was like, okay, I did it. I wrote a book.
I'm just so happy for you. I'm so excited about this series.
Yeah.
If you could put Kate, of all the books that you've read,
Mm.
okay, if you could put Kate into a story with another main character, who would you put her with?
Oh man. Um, I,
That's
I have
hard.
honestly never thought about that. I think of myself as more media educated than book educated. I'm not one of those people who plows through dozens and dozens of books, and I don't read at all while I'm writing. I'll pick up a book. I picked up Jack's books, while I was on vacation. Um, but when I'm writing, I don't want to read anybody else's stuff. I'm just weird about that. Um, who would I see her partnering with somewhere? Of course, it's hard for me, and I think too about Jake is still so ever present in my mind. Um, I'll be honest with you, nobody comes to mind. Nobody jumps out at me. I would be curious if you could think of her
I don't
partnering
know
with
who I
somebody.
want. I don't know if I'd want to see her partner up with
Yeah.
somebody or if I'd want to see her go against
Oh, well, that could
somebody.
be fun too. Yeah.
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 It's something to think about,
Well,
like who would
yeah.
you have you thought about who if it and I don't know why this would not make it to the big screen. It needs to
Yeah.
be a streaming
Yeah.
series. Have you thought
Yeah.
about who you would like to see if you got to pick? And I know that's not how it works. You writers
No.
never
Yeah.
you lose all that. Who would you
Yeah,
pick?
you lose all that control. The segue for a second, I took James Patterson's master class, and he has a little section on if Hollywood comes knocking, he said take the check, shake their hand, and walk away because you have no control. And he was on some set, and there was a character, and he's like, well, who are you? Oh, I'm so and so's mother. And he's like, well, there isn't a mother in the book, so. I'm prepared to, if someone comes knocking, I'll shake their hand, take the check, and walk away. Um, I do love, by the way, when people tell me it's cinematic. It felt like I was watching a movie. I mean, because I do try to write it that way, and to anyone listening, I'm open to cinnamon rights. Just give me a call. Um, the I've forgotten her name, but the other day I got a note from someone who said the woman in Rogue One would make a great Kate, and I had to look her up. I'm terrible with names, but I
I
but
am
I
too.
look
You
yeah I
can't,
look
I can't do it. Forget it.
yeah
I'm
yeah
not.
yeah.
If you need a person to be on your Trivial Pursuit team for
Oh,
pop
oh yeah.
culture,
No, it is, and it's definitely not me. But I was actually on the phone with someone who I don't know what kind of producer, development editor type they are, but a friend of a friend said, give me a call, and he read Relentless, and he asked me that question, and literally that day, the email had come in, so I blurted out that name, and he looked her up and said, oh yeah, she would work, and we shared the same agent. And I see here that she likes to do her own development work, and so I got a little bit of inside baseball with it. They like to try to pick, an actor or an actress who wants to be part of the development because it's easier to get it made. And he said, "Well, do you see this, as big screen or as a series?" I said, "I see it more like a series than a Netflix kind of thing or a Prime thing than big screen." He goes, "Oh, that's good because you can't get big screen made anymore." I mean, it's got to be $100 million project, but we can do an Amazon or Netflix for 5 million. I'm like, okay, well, just call me when you're ready, and so we'll see if I ever get called back. But no, I did a little survey of my customers, my readers at one point to see who they saw, and I got names all over the map. It's fun, but I've not taken it seriously.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it is, we all like it. And it's one thing I think is cool about being a reader is that we all walk away with something different.
Yes, that's what was fascinating about doing the survey. I'm intentionally fairly vague about most of the characters. I mean, I want people to use their imagination. So I give them a little bit of a framework and say, now picture it the way you would like. And so the survey was interesting. My wife, Michelle, was one of the most interesting when I asked her who was her favorite character that was part of the survey, in Relentless. And she said Nomad. And I thought she would say Kate. Yeah, but no, no, Nomad. I'm like, yeah, he's pretty cool.
He is cool. There's just like something that's unknown and he's so smart, like I don't think we've tapped into to everything that he can do.
No, I agree. I agree. So I'm the little one pager I'm working up for whether he would work as a series is exactly that. It's kind of fun to be working on it, if for no other reason than it's a little bit of a break from Kate right now, because this is kind of a throw it over the fence. Once I kind of work this up and I'm happy with who I think he could be and what the series might be, that's throw it over the fence to my editor and go back to work on Kate and or the prequel. I need to revisit the prequel because it was written pre-Unstoppable, and I haven't looked back at it. As I'm telling my wife over dinner, I'm like, I can go back and see if it's any good, but at least it's a place to start.
Were you sad when Defiant ended? Like, was it, or were you really like, "Whew, I did that," or was it like, golly,
Uh,
I missed it?
both, because I knew what I wanted Defiant to be, and I hit it, and I walked away from it. Yeah, that works. That ties it up and as neatly as I can, for the readers who've bared with me all three books. Um, but it was a little melancholy that from Relentless to Defiant, I knew what I was doing. I knew where I was going, and what the next day's writing was going to be. So now after Defiant, this is all launch the book, promote the series. I'm all in this marketing land right now and social media land right now, and I miss the writing. So I'm looking forward to. I've told people I like to write.
Yeah.
I've never had a day of writer's block. I know even if I don't know what's going to happen that day, I enjoy the process.
When you're writing, did you ever think, or did you have, this is kind of a weird question. Did you have to reel Kate back in? Like, did you ever like let her get,
Yes, yes, yes. Particularly in Relentless, because I didn't really, have the full grasp of her yet. Um, you know, I won't go into too many gory details, but Stephen James doing the developmental edit, for the first draft of Relentless was kind of like, whoa, that's like the 10th thing in a row Kate's done that. I'm like, oh, you were so right. I need to pull her back a little bit.
I could see how
And I
she could
wanted you
get
I
away
wanted
from
you
people.
to like her.
Yeah. I mean, she could, I could see where it would be hard, especially at the beginning, because you have to set the standard or,
Yeah.
set her patterns for the rest of the
Yeah,
series.
yeah. The scene where we refer to him as Tesla Man. So when Tesla Man bursts into the coffee shop and wreaks havoc, Kate was a little brutal initially. And like, okay, I'm gonna dial this back a little bit.
That's so funny. So tell us, what book are you going to Thriller Fest? It's like in a couple weeks.
No, yeah, I have not this year.
Are you going to any big book
I
conferences?
I have BoucherCon penciled in. A
Mm.
lot kind of depends on what's happening in life here, with the house sale and how my wife's doing. We'd like to. A lot of friends have said, "Go, just it's beautiful up there." And so I'm tempted. Um, there's, you know, I would like to get back to the Thriller Fest. I kind of feel like I started at Thriller Fest. It was really kind of a bit of a kickoff. Um, and it's New York. One of my favorite restaurants in the world is in New York.
Funny. So, is there a local bookstore or someplace where people who are watching or listening, because we're going to be on Spotify too, we're on
Yeah.
Spotify now too,
Oh,
can
good.
get signed copies?
No.
No.
I created a little Shopify store for a while at kind of their minimal level. I might start it back up for the holidays. People want signed copies. I've had a few people just write me, and I'm happy to fulfill those. But there's no place that actually carries them yet. It would be nice, but I'm not there.
It's the indie
Yeah.
versus traditional
It
whole
it is.
thing.
Yeah, it is.
And it's a fine line that we see walked. Like if you're gonna, and it makes sense like why you wanted to keep it
Yeah.
through the series. But I mean, and then we also see that traditionally published authors have to work as hard to get the
Oh
book
yeah.
out there too. So
Yeah, I think the illusion has been shattered that somehow you get an agent and a publisher, and now you just sit back and let the royalty checks roll in. And I think coming from the indie world, I'm like, great, I'm prepared to do whatever it takes. And if I went the traditional route and they want to help with open the doors, I'll be there. So I'm willing to do the work. I love marketing. Um, it's just one of those things that, I love writing more.
yeah. So you said a prequel, and that's coming next-ish, maybe?
I need to go back and take a look at it and see what condition it's in. If it's not going to take too much to bring that out, I would love to bring that out. I don't know that it's the best business decision. I don't know how much interest there is, in people who are buying the trilogy to go back and buy the prequel. I like to think they would want to buy it, but the best business decision would be book four. Keep because I've got really pretty good read through. I mean, I don't know what the stats are, but I'd say for the most part, people who pick up Relentless pick up Unstoppable and pick up Defiant. I mean, there's always a tail off, that it didn't resonate with, but it resonates with more people than it doesn't, and so I love and from an indie author perspective and advertising, the promotion, and so on. Um, I think I might start to break even with book three, and so with book four, maybe I'll start to make a little money. It's one of those things that I would love to get somebody do audiobooks. I hesitated early on just because it's such a huge expense, and the books are already not profitable. A little bit of inside baseball there, but the demand for audiobooks just seems to be so high that at some point here, I'm just going to have to say, I got to get this done. I wondered if AI for audio would help at all. I will say that 11 Labs has a product called 11 Reader, and as a test case, I uploaded Relentless, and it was fun to listen to Laurence Olivier narrate my book. I don't think it's commercial, but it was still fun.
Yeah, there are, I mean, there are a lot of apps that put you can pick your narrator and they read the books for you
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
I think if we're ever going to do a true audiobook, um, I've had advice on both sides of the aisle. I'm not an audiobook consumer, so I'm a bad choice for this. That, well, do you have a narrated by a woman? Do you have it narrated by a man? Um, and I'm like, well, be a woman, right? And they're like, well, not necessarily. And I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense to me. Um, or do you multicast? Do you have a male and a female voice, doing the different, accents and characters and so on? So it's a massive decision and it's an expensive decision. So
Yeah.
that's one I need to take carefully.
Yeah, that I hadn't thought about the expense part of that because I will probably listen to one. I have one going a week about.
Yeah, yeah.
There's always kind of one. I don't know. I'm listening to Dungeon Crawler Carl right now. Holy
Okay.
fright, that's so good. It's so fun.
Yeah.
And it's so out of like what I normally read. It's really fun. But
Yeah.
I,
Well, these
yeah,
books, just raw page count. I mean, I think Relentless would be 10 or 11 hours of audio. So it'd be a big audio book. Unstoppable is the biggest of the three, so that's probably 13, 14 hours. So it's big.
yeah, it'll be interesting though if you do decide to do it, just definitely let us know so we
Yeah,
can
absolutely.
promo stuff out for
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. Will probably happen, particularly for folks who are on the ARC list and beta list and so on, is if I go that route, I'll audition some voices and then put it out there. Say, what do you think? Is this Kate?
Hmm.
And if we do multicast, is this Jake or Forrest or Marcus or whoever? What do you think about these voices and see how it goes.
All the decisions.
It,
Well,
it's too
I
big a decision to
appreciate
make all by myself. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today and talked about and because I'll talk forever and
Yeah.
honestly, each book almost needs its own episode, so we covered all three today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't even get out my annotations and I have a
I
bazillion.
I love I love seeing those though. They're great. Yeah.